morning, everyone. This is Sherman Dahl with Pretium Capital and Investing with Awareness. It's a lovely morning here in the Okanagan. Wanted to highlight some news that came out this morning, in particular on a company that we follow very closely, a company called Cornish Metals. Cornish Metals is a very interesting company, which is based out of Vancouver, but the primary assets are in the United Kingdom. They have a very significant and advanced tin deposit, which is very well known as South Crofty. I've been involved with South Crofty for a number of years. I've actually been to the site visit with Richard Williams. I'm going to be doing an interview later on this week with Richard, but he's quite tied up in the United Kingdom now, as they're coming closer and closer to doing the final closing of their financing. I'd highlight a couple things. We're going to bring a few clips in from a previous video that I did with Richard, so that he can speak to the quality of the asset in Cornish Metals. But in particular, what I really want to highlight is the advanced nature of this company, in particular with the very strategic asset of tin, and also their interest in the copper as well. They've had a significant copper discovery in their United Downs deposit. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. You can go to the corporate website, you can look at their corporate presentation, but I really want to highlight to listeners that, we view Cornish Metals as a strong buy. In particular, it's a phenomenal way to play the whole battery metal sector, and in particular, the move that we're seeing to a very low carbon footprint. And in particular, so really it's the end of the combustion engine. So the building of all these electric vehicles and all the infrastructure is going to require an enormous amount of tin, and require an enormous amount of copper. So with Cornish Metals, you're really getting a very nicely packaged up company that's going to be going, it's sort of fast tracking its way to production, with the recent announcement of a significant financing with, and I highlight, I've got a couple of news releases you can see right here this morning. They just announced the special meeting of shareholders to be held on May 19th. That's really to approve this financing. The financing was to raise about 40 million pounds, and very interesting, a strategic 25 million pound strategic investment by Sir McDavis. This is backed up by a company that's already significantly financed by Osisko. So Osisko's got a strategic metals group that makes investments in tin and copper and other strategic assets. And they made this investment quite a while ago in Cornish Metals, and this is really starting to bear fruit now for Osisko. So you got majors like Osisko and Sir McDavis in there investing in this company for a reason, and that's the reason we're invested in it originally, was for the tin asset. Tin is not easy to find, and there's just no question that Cornish Metals is one of the largest undeveloped tin deposits globally. And we're not talking, they're looking for tin. They actually have a tin resource. That the tin deposit in South Crofty is world class. Clearly there's some work to do to put it into production, but they got a full permits to do so, and they're having no trouble attracting financing from the likes of people like Osisko and Sir McDavis. There's also some other very strategic shareholders that make up the shareholder base of Cornish Metals. But my plan today was just to highlight what's going on here. And at 34 cents, it's got a relatively low market cap for the quality of the asset that they have. There's also going to be some other presentations this week. I'm going to talk to Richard on Thursday. Eros Resources, ERO, is also going to be doing a presentation. If you go to Eros Resources company website, you'll see a link to that as well. But really what I want to highlight today is a couple things from our most recent video that Richard and I did called the Triple Crown. So that'll bring Richard in to talk a little bit about Cornish Metals. You can do it yourself just by going to check out the symbol. CUSN is the symbol. Cornish Metals take a hard look at this, guys. I mean, for investing in tin and investing in copper, it doesn't get much better. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
I'm Richard Williams. I'm the CEO of Cornish Metals. We are dual listed. We listed in Canada on the TSXV and also in the UK on the AIM exchange under the symbol CUSN, copper tin. We listed in London earlier this year in February. Our projects are really an exploration project, new discovery in Cornwall called United Downs, which has potential for high-grade copper plus tin plus silver in an area that's had a lot of historic mining previously. And we've also got the former tin producing mine called South Crofty, which is fully permitted. And that's obviously a commodity that is very much of interest. Tin is not just an important element maybe when it comes to battery technology, but I think it's more of a technology metal. And it's referred to as the glue in electronics. And I think it's essential to this whole new global drive towards achieving net zero and carbon footprints, electrification of economies, because anything with an electrical connection has tin in it. So traditionally, up until about 20 years ago, the main uses of tin were in things like chemicals, alloys, bronze, for instance, tin plating, glass floating, and as a stabilizer in PVC, as well as a use in solder. And then about 20 years ago, the EU passed legislation to outlaw the use of lead in solder, and that saw a dramatic increase over the last 20 years in the use of tin solders, to the point where over the last 20 years, global demand for tin has increased from about 200,000 tons per year to its current levels of around 370, 380,000 tons per year. And that's really driven by the growth in electronic applications, anything from iPhones, iPads, computers, anything with electric circuitry inside it. And what we are seeing is current growth projections in the order of 2 to 4% per year going forward. The International Tin Association, which is based in the UK and comprises the full spectrum of participants in the tin world, ranging from explorers, developers, producers, through smelters, metal recyclers, end users, and research and development. They talk about us being at the start of a technology super cycle. And there was a publication made a few years ago, a research project out of MIT in the US, which was then republished by Rio Tinto, which looked at new technologies like robotics, the Internet of Things, computing, renewable power, power generation, solar power generation. And they looked at which elements and which metals were used in those sectors, and consequently which metals would be most impacted by growth in those areas and adoption of some of these new technologies. And to the surprise, I think, of a lot of people in the market, tin came out at the top of the list. Talk a little bit about the South Crofty project. This is the highest grade tin resource globally that I'm aware of that's not in production. We published an updated resource this year which showed 1 million tons indicated, 2 million tons inferred, at a tin grade of around 1.6% tin, which ranks it at a similar grade as the Renison Bell mine in Tasmania. From a tin price perspective, even when the tin price collapsed in 1985, South Crofty was one of the few hard rock tin mines that managed to keep operating for another 13 years, which is testament to the high grade nature of the project. So what we have as a company is a mine that operated for a long time. So a lot of the risk aspects that you would associate with a new mine are really not there. We understand the geology, we understand the metallurgical process to maximize recovery of tin. We know it's high grade, we know what the ground conditions are like, and we've got a mine permit that's valid for another 50 years. We have planning permission to build a new process plant. And more importantly, we have very strong community support to see the mine go back into production. One of the new growth areas in tin is in a product that's called solar ribbon. And this is all from the International Tin Association. In about 2017, they estimate that solar ribbon accounted for about 1,000 tons of tin consumption. And what solar ribbon is really a copper wire that's got a tin coating on the outside of it, and it's used on solar panels for conducting electricity that's generated from the solar panels. They estimated last year tin consumption in the production of solar ribbon had increased to somewhere between 10 and 15,000 tons of tin per year. And that growth is expected to continue on that trajectory over the next few years, because you look at some of the initiatives that the US government's announcing, that the Chinese government's announcing for the development of solar panel farms that are generating electricity, and it is massive. And so, the demand for tin is going to continue to grow, and what we face as a tin sector is really a lack of investment over the last 30 years into looking for new projects. The existing mines are all seeing depletion in grades, depletion in resources. So there's real concern from some of the big tin producing areas of how they're going to redress that balance. So I think looking at areas like Cornwall and as Tim mentioned, they've got a tin association in some of the projects in Spain. That's where the opportunity lies. So that's my bit on tin.